everyone. Oh, once more, aloha. That's better. It's my great honor to introduce this morning Chris Stott, who is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Mansat, which is the world's largest commercial provider of satellite spectrum. However, he assures me his passion is directed to Geeks Without Frontiers, an organization which won one of our innovation awards last year at our 40th annual conference. Geeks Without Frontiers has a goal of positively impacting 1 billion lives in the next 10 years. And I'd just like to note how nicely that aligns with PTC's own recently revised mission, which is to advance the ethical development and use of ICT. So please join me in welcoming Chris Stott.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Aloha. And thank you, PTC, for giving this opportunity to Geeks Without Frontiers to talk to you today about doing good and doing good. And they also very kindly gave us an innovation award last year, and I wanted to bring you up to date about what we've been doing, and also ask everyone to lock the doors at the back. No one gets out without a donation. I'm not joking. Sorry, didn't they not tell you this? Just kidding. All right. But ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to talk to you about our mission at Geeks Without Frontiers, what we've been doing in this last year, and actually truly ask you for support at the end of this, in a good way. So think about the world at the moment. Are you happy with the world that we're living in? You're unique. As telecoms executives, we travel around the entire planet. We get to see more of this planet, more of its problems, more of its issues than almost any other industry. We support governments, we support corporations, we bring broadband into countries. It is the lifeblood of their economies. We make a radical difference. And that's what started to get us motivated at Geeks Without Frontiers. Because as we traveled the world, and we're a group of satellite people, wireless people, cable people, sound familiar? Big data, box manufacturers, and we all got together one evening, and we all got very upset because we said, hang on a minute, we were told the world was getting better. We're not seeing that. We were told that if we do this and we do that, the world's a better place. And we started to see gaps where we could act quite substantially, quite quickly, and make a true difference in the economies of nations by opening up broadband. So our mission at Geeks is to actually bring together the next 1 billion minds to positively impact 1 billion people in the next 10 years. And we started about 6 or 7 years ago, so we're kind of pushing it at the moment, but we're trying hard. Now, they told me this would work. And, of course, it's not working. Try that one. There we go. We're a not-for-profit. Our 10-year goal to connect the 1 billion minds. But really, it's to effect positive change. It's to use broadband to connect those 1 billion people. Now, we think of 1 billion human beings as what? Customers? ARPU? Or do you think of them as students, nurses, doctors, teachers, entrepreneurs, fellow human beings that once we connect them to the rest of the human conversation, they can fundamentally make a difference. And if we connect them through entrepreneurial activity, not through aid. I don't know about you, but I've spent my life growing up in a world where aid rapidly appears to be the problem, not the solution. There are too many people out there managing the problems, not solving them. And that is our focus at Geeks, is to get things solved. And someone else can start my car after this when I say things like that. So it's about economics, not aid, about what kind of world do you want. And as professionals, you see that. So how do we affect this change? We're in a very unique position to do so. So fiber, wireless, satellite, exponential connectivity, using smart devices, getting them into the hands of entrepreneurs. And what we've found is and thank you for what you do. I imagine we very rarely get thanks from other industries. It's like, why is my cell phone not working? Why can't I send my email? Why does it cost so much? But no one ever realizes the impact that you have. You are investing billions of dollars in new cable, new satellite, new wireless 5G, new connectivity. You're doing the heavy lifting. And as professionals in the industry, when we take this time out, we said, okay, how can we actually make this happen? How can we change the equation? So we do things that are very, very boring, really unsexy. Our first project was with Google, and we did an 802.11s mesh network Wi-Fi. That was IEEE certified. Yes, say that 3 times, and you go straight to sleep. However, that's now actively bringing connectivity to over 100 million people around the world. You change the standards. You go talk to a government and say, you're facing a tsunami of data requirements. Every 2 years, Moore's law changes. Every 2 years, you have an exponential increase in data demand from the humans, let alone the machines they're using. Are your regulations set up to handle this? And we started to look at this. Like I said, my colleagues are from the cable fiber industry. So the first thing we did was dig once. Something that will reduce the cost of laying cable fiber and electricity by over 90%. In this, we've been very kind to have the support of the World Bank, the State Department, the US FCC. Commissioner Pai was one of our great supporters then, now he's Chairman Pai. The idea being that if you're going to dig up a road or build a road, put a communal conduit in so you can easily change out cable fiber and electricity and everything else. I'm not going to pick on the World Bank, and they do an amazing job, but let me just say there was one part of the World Bank that would give your country a loan to build a road. There was another part of the World Bank that would then wait until the road was finished, then they'd dig it up, and then put cable fiber down. Dig once. And through the work, and thanks to PTC and the connections we made last year and their kind support, we're now actively on the Broadband Development Advisory Committee at the FCC. We're the only NGO on that. We've been active in actually writing the new Dig Once legislation in the United States and in other nations. If we're going to roll out broadband, Dig Once is crucial. We have the model law backed by the World Bank and others. Please, happy to give it to you. Happy to go talk to your national regulators impartially and talk them through all of this. It works really well. It's logical. It cuts down your costs and makes it easier to get broadband out. Who'd have thought? So, we didn't stop at cable. We went to satellite, part of my portfolio at Mansat. And we said, okay, how easy, if we're going to connect 1 billion people in developing nations, how easy is it to get a license for a dish? A VSAT dish, a USAT, very small aperture terminal, ultra small aperture terminal in those nations. Not that easy. And we have these new high throughput satellites. Companies like Viasat and Hughes and others are building and deploying, and they're fundamentally changing the equation on rural broadband. It's as big a change from Viasat and Hughes as the iPhone is today from those old handheld Motorola walkie-talkies we used to have. But from a regulatory point of view, no fault of their own at all. They've grown up in a system of scarcity. When having a satellite connection was rare, it was expensive, it was finely tuned. Today, you can throw up a dish and in less than 20 or 30 minutes be fully connected at gigabytes per second. It's stunning. But if you're a national regulator, how do you prepare for that? Who do you go to for the impartial advice? So we put together HumanityConnect, again, backed by all of the major satellite players, all of the major not-for-profits in the industry, the various industry associations, and some of the governments. We were active in working with Brazil and doing blanket licensing. The idea of instead of doing every single one of these dishes a license, you do a blanket license. Technology standards, working with a regulator whose job it is to help their own country, who wants to do the right thing, to talk them through all of the different options, give them model legislation, and allow them to turn on the broadband pipe into their nation, into their rural areas, bridging that rural divide. And you might say, well, that's great, Chris. That's, great, more satellite connectivity in the rural areas, more cable fiber in the cities, and when we're putting in 5G, that's wonderful, it helps. It helps. But we had a very personal story come back that we didn't really anticipate. And this was out of Rwanda. And it's about Facebook. Claude was just up, and it's fantastic. And it was a really interesting story that we'd never, ever put a human face to this. We knew we were doing it. We're working with local entrepreneurs. They're amazing. We just empower them. And it was a doctor. And the doctor came to us and said, "Thank you very much. I now have nurses in my rural clinic." I'm like, "Well, no, you're welcome. We don't know how we helped, but you're welcome." And he was very upfront. He said, "No, this is great," because they wanted to be on social media. And they wanted to be on Facebook with their friends. And when they come out to the rural clinics, they had no connectivity. But now, they have better connectivity in the rural clinic than they do in the city. So they spend a lot more time in the rural clinic because they can actually have access to the internet. And that was an amazing thing. We hadn't even crossed our minds, but that's the impact that we're having. And talking to local entrepreneurs who can now, through cell phone, digital banking, and access to broadband, Wi-Fi mesh network via satellite or cable head ends, edge of network traffic, it's really starting to have an impact. Because you're doing the equipment, you guys are doing the heavy lifting, we just go sit with the regulator to clear up that regulatory barrier. Because believe me, we're all hurtling into the broadband future, and there's a couple of major brick walls out there of regulation. No one's fault, they're just legacy systems. And that's what we work on to change. And that's what we've been doing. We've been doing CSR programs. We've been taking donations of equipment. If you have a warehouse full of old equipment and you don't know what to do with it, please talk to us. We'll find you a wonderful tax-deductible donation, and we'll get it in the hands of entrepreneurs who will pay for it, hopefully a discounted rate. And then they'll use that to kickstart their businesses that grow and turn into other businesses, enable more connectivity. Like I said, this isn't about aid, it's about economics. We do CSR. We've been working with all of the major corporate providers, from Microsoft to Google, and they've been amazing partners, Facebook and others. So we're right there with you. You just don't see us that often. And it was only kindly thanks to PTC last year, they said, "Will you please come up and talk about what you do?" because we would quietly get things done. I know, what a shock. Keep your heads down, do the work, clear the path for all of you. And trust me, it just helps us sleep better at night. So please, if you want, get in touch with us. David Hartshorn is now our CEO and Executive Director. David is formerly from the Global VSAT Forum, because we are moving this down to the village level now. We said, great, okay, dig once, get the fiber in, get the 5G systems in on that. National, regional regulators, fantastic, we'll break down those barriers. Now, we're on the ground. We're working throughout the Middle East, Africa, looking to work in the Pacific. We're working in North America as well, working with entrepreneurs on village-level connectivity and economic models of preparing that for broadband, and working with cellular companies. We're not disruptive. We don't believe in that. We're there to be cooperative, to work with everyone. So there you go. They did lock the doors. I think I saw one chap made a break for it, but we got the wallet off him at the end. But if you'd like to get involved, sincerely, we'd love to have you join us. We'd love to introduce you to our other partners and actually fundamentally making that change. So when you go home to the families and you're in the corporate board and you're talking to your colleagues, you know, as we all do, you can hand on heart and say, we are in one of the only industries in the world that fundamentally changes the world we live in. And if you want to make that change too, jump on board. We'd love to have you. Apparently, I have 5 minutes for questions if anyone has any questions. Go ahead, sir. Oh, I'm sorry. The lady was running with the mic.
Sorry.
Yeah,
my name is John Strand. I'm one of those crazy Danes.
Yes.
Which you probably know. You have an interesting project in Jordan. Can you tell a little bit about that?
See, and that was not a plan,
yet?
I promise you. Thank you very much. And actually, thanks to the great nation of Denmark, who's been incredibly supportive of this. Yes, we're actually looking now at working in refugee camps in Jordan. The idea of bringing broadband connectivity into the camps in a very secure way, in a way that works with the government there so they're not upset, they're not concerned about content, but also in a way that brings education right into the camps, that brings Khan Academy, TED Talks, that brings iTunes University into the camps, and also trains people on IT with the idea of starting economies, education, and getting people out of those camps. We also work with the Ammar Foundation down in Iraq and in Lebanon with camps there. And people, when they get to a camp, they tend to stay in a camp. The average stay is 17 years. And trust me, by the grace of God, we don't live in refugee camps. It's a horrific place. But if we can do anything to empower our fellow human beings, to give them back education, dignity, an economy, wages, and a job, to help them move back home and rebuild their countries, then we've done the right thing. And it's telecoms that does that. It's access. So working with Eutelsat, working with local providers, and thank you for the work. It's a tremendous thing. So this is real stuff. This isn't just esoteric. We actually get our hands very dirty, up to our elbows, and we get the work done. And it is immense fun. It's very rewarding. Because again, you can go home at the end of the day and say, yeah, we have actually fundamentally changed the world, tried to make it a better place. And our hope is that once we've done that in Jordan, we can actually reach out for other models throughout the Middle East, Africa, Southeast Asia, and anywhere else that we're needed, we'll go. And we're entirely self-funded at the moment, too. Please. Oh, the microphone, please. Thank you.
You do a great job, but I would say one thing. I think the most important role you have is as a role model to other people do the same different places around the world, because it's basically, it's people will never be served by commercial companies, and it's basically stimulating the markets there, and it actually will have a positive effect on the commercial business in those markets. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, well, thank you very much, sir. No, thank you. That's our aim, is to be the neutral party that comes in and helps. Yeah. It's also a wonderful tax write-off. The question over here.
Thank you very much. First, a word of deep appreciation. It's obvious that you're not just in this for yourself or even for your program. That motivation is much appreciated. How do you prioritize in a world where there's so many needs? The UN and other groups have all kinds of debates and problems about the most pressing needs. Secondly, how do you sustain support and make it become self-supportive?
Thank you, sir. That's a very good question. And we've asked ourselves the same thing. And that's where we went down from the, well, in answer to your question, it's to make it self-replicating. It's to create that model, as the example in Jordan, create the model and make it happen. So wonderful to talk about Dig Once and HumanityConnect and working with all these global regulators and national regulators, but then to put it into practice, and put it into practice in key parts of the world, because everything is local. You can think global, you must act locally. Get that model right in those parts of the world, and then turn it loose. Find the entrepreneurs, working with the Microsofts, the Googles, and Facebooks and the others, finding those clusters of entrepreneurship, finding those young people with a drive and passion, and empowering them, and letting them build their own communities, because they have that local knowledge. And it's that tool set. So we're putting together the tool set at the moment. And please, any feedback is always most welcome, because we don't have the answers. You know, the local people do. They know their local culture. They know their local families, their local tribes, their local countries, politics, economics. They know what they need. We don't. And it's to empower the local person to do everything for themselves. You know, it's to look that person in the eye, shake their hands, and say, fantastic, thank you. One day, we might need your help for us in our countries, or one day, you're going to be helping someone else. And we're humans, you know. We're all in this big spaceship Earth together, 7.5 billion of us. And, you know, you only get one life, and you might as well do some good with it. Doing good by doing good, sir. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, I think I'm down to 20 seconds. So happy to talk with anyone after this. We're around Geeks Without Frontiers. Hey, Alexa, Geeks Without Frontiers. All right? If someone's watching at home, they're going crazy right now. But yeah, geekswf.org. And please, we're in Washington, we're in Europe, we're in Denmark, we're in London, we're in the Middle East, we're all over the place. And we're all telecoms professionals donating time. Thank you.